So this is our Krone TC640 twin rotor center delivery rake. The main question I want to answer today is it any good and would we buy it again? Before we answer that question, I'd like to talk about the spec of this machine and our likes and dislikes. So the clue's in the name. It's a 5.7 to 6.4 meter working width. It's obviously a center delivery rake, so it has 10 tine arms per rotor. And then the width can be adjusted using these top links here. Obviously you can move the rotors in and out on the top links. They also have two holes here for the maximum and minimum settings. It is an optional extra to get these with hydraulic rams putting the rotors in and out. However, we don't have enough spool valves in the tractor. We only have two, so therefore that wasn't an option for us. It's quite a tall machine and also quite long. Its height can be anywhere from 3.55 to 3.9 meters in transport position. Obviously that depends on how far you have the top links extended. Obviously the narrower they are, the lower the machine will be in terms of height. It's 2.54 meters wide when it's in its folded up position for the road. Now this machine itself is slightly wider because it's on wider tyres. We put much wider tyres on them. The original tyres are 10.0 by 75 by 15.3s. These are BKT 340 by 55 by 16, and obviously they're a wider and slightly taller tyre, leaving the machine slightly more stable and obviously slightly wider on the road. According to the brochure, the machine weighs 1.4 tonne. Now we've added optional extra wheel weights. This increases the stability of the machine of course, but will increase its weight naturally enough. The swath width can be adjusted from 1 meter to 1.7 meters wide using the top links that we've already mentioned to adjust the rotors in and out. There's no adjustment in the angle of the cam to adjust the swath width like other brands. The rake is 4.82 meters long. Now you can get an optional steering axle, and that machine is much longer because there's a spacer bit between the back axle as such and the main frame. Krone calls their cam system the Duramax cam track, and it's a dry cam track, so no grease or oil, and it has a 5-year warranty on it. It's a wide angle shaft with the wide angle going towards the machine, and it's also got a slip clutch built into it in case you hit an obstacle. Obviously there's no top link with most rakes. They mount directly onto your lower arms. That obviously allows for movement in one plane, and then Krone have allowed for movement in the horizontal plane with this elongated slot built into the headstock. So that brings us on to our likes and dislikes of this machine. My main dislike is that Krone didn't build in any float system for the rotors on this machine. It requires you to have a float system on your tractor, which this tractor does not. What I mean by that is, as you're going across a field, if one rotor goes up onto a bank, if you didn't have float on your tractor and your hydraulic system, that rotor would obviously be fighting the other rotor and could cause the frame to crack, of course. I think they could have solved this problem quite easily by building in an elongated slot in this position, and that would have allowed obviously the rotors to toggle up and down depending on the length of that slot, and this would have allowed farmers with a tractor that doesn't have a float system built in an easy solution. What we had to do to compensate for that was we had to build a very crude system using magnets. So when you have this tractor in single acting on the spool valves, the return feature is actually a float system in these tractors, but the lever itself does not stick in this position. You'd have to hold it all the time in this position. Therefore, we use magnets as an easy solution to this, so that when you push the levers furthest away from you in the return position, they're held in position, and therefore the hydraulics are in a float setting. Another dislike is that the machine is quite stable. However, if you didn't have the wheel weights or the extra wide tyres that we put on it, it would be very unstable. Even with these additional extras that we put on it, you have to be very careful when you lift one rotor on the side of a hill. The machine could tip over if you weren't careful. Another complaint is that obviously Krone in its PDI inspection missed this washer here. That's a bump stop so that the tine arm doesn't hit this gearbox when it's folded down. Unfortunately, when that washer was missing, there was a slight mark left there when one of these bolts hit that when it was in its working position, but we've corrected that now ourselves. There was also a seal damaged in the gearbox on top of the cam, and that was leaking grease because it's a grease gearbox out in the first time we used it, but that was quite quickly fixed by the dealer under warranty, so no issues there. You could get those faults with any machine, I suppose. The lights are quite visible and obviously great for the road with this added reflective plate. However, I think that maybe they should have added in some sort of breakaway or toggle system, just like McHale have on their balers. They have a little rubber bung there to allow the light to bend back in case you'd hit it on the way into a field. Obviously with the narrower tyres, those lights would be very near the outside. With the wider tyres, the lights are less likely to get hit, of course. I think this applies for all rakes though, is that it's quite hard to store. It's quite long and quite tall. Now Krone do have an optional fold down tine arm, which we obviously didn't spec in this machine. In hindsight, maybe we should have. It would have left it that it could have gone into lower sheds like the hay shed down there. That brings us on to our likes. So what do we like about this machine? So number one, it's an extremely efficient machine. It's such a step up from the hay bob we had from the years previous. It can take in 3 7-foot disc mower swathes, and arguably it could probably take in 3 8-foot disc mower swathes, and it's wide the setting. Now we haven't tried that, so don't quote me on that one. I suppose this machine ultimately was designed for 2 10-foot mower conditioner swathes or tethered out grass, but it cleans the ground exceptionally well and leaves very little grass behind it. It covers ground extremely quickly as well. Even with a relatively low forward speed, you cover a lot of acres in a very short space of time. It is a very low power requirement. The manual I think quotes around 35 horsepower. This tractor's around 80 horsepower and powers it with ease. We operated around 1400 RPM, and that leaves it very easy on the machine, very easy on diesel, and it leaves a great swath at that even low RPM and low PTO speed. It leaves a very good even flat row, which creates a good bale, and that's a fundamental feature of any rake. You need to have a good even row. The jet effect is a great feature, although I think it's overemphasised by Krone, but it is handy if you're coming to the end of a row and you're trying to lift over another swath that's just in front of you. The front of the rake lifts up first, which means it clears the swath quite easily. It also makes it much more gentle on the rake when you're letting down the rotors, as the back hits first then the front. It doesn't all hit at one time in a big bang. The rotors themselves have good undulation both on the side to side and forward and back planes. As we talked about before though, we would have preferred if there was a float for each rotor independent of each other. This rake is very easy to operate on undulating ground, unlike the hay bob where you're constantly adjusting the top link and the lower arms to make sure you didn't damage it. This rake has good undulation built into the rotors, combined with the makeshift float system that we've added, or if you had a tractor with inbuilt float, it means that it would be very hard to damage this machine, even on rough ground. Simple things that Krone got right are the stand. It's very easy to operate up and down. It folds away nicely, it's not in the way, it doesn't catch grass, and it leaves it very stable when it's folded away and left in the shed. Another simple thing they got right is storage places for the pipes. There's 2 places you can store them. It's up to yourself. It leaves the pipes and electrical fittings out of your way and easy to find when you're putting the machine on and off. It is a nice simple rope operated system to make sure that the rotors don't fall down on the road, and also to stop you lifting the rotors too high and damaging the PTO shafts. Another simple feature is the way this central swathe board folds up. When it's in transport position, it's simply by a small linkage arm between the main rotor and the swathe board itself. So going back to our original question, is it any good and would we buy it again? Yes, absolutely we would buy this machine again. It's a fantastic machine, super efficient, easy to operate. A pity it wasn't a little bit cheaper, but apart from that, it's very hard to fault it.